In this hour-long video, we compiled the most ingenious predators we've ever seen. Today, we'll remember what birds learn to use fire for, how spiders use ingenious traps, including lassos, and how a little bird terrified everyone with its unusual approach to hunting. We'll also refresh our memories of polar bears hunting techniques, recall how clever elephants can be, and much more. Let's go. You've probably heard the story about how a common bee knocked down a rider once. A tiny insect that crashed into a man at full speed and easily knocked him down. Is this true or not? I don't know. But I know one thing. If a person meets a giant hornet, the rider's problems will seem like nothing to him. Asian giant hornets are definitely not the kind of creatures you'd want to know closely, even if you don't suffer from entomophobia. First of all, they're big. No, more like the Asian giant hornets are huge, 1.7 inches long, with a wingspan of roughly 3 inches, plus a 1/4 inch long stinger. This is the damn giant of the insect world. For comparison, an ordinary bee stinger, which can also hurt you a lot, is about 0.06 inches long. You see the difference? The important thing is to not feel it. It's believed that Asian giant hornets have existed on our planet since at least the Miocene period. That is, they've been living with us for a long time. You shouldn't blame bad ecology for their enormous size. Hornets are just naturally big. Why? Well, you know there's a reason media calls them killer hornets. These are real machines for exterminating other insects. However, in the wild, size doesn't always matter. Sperm whales are huge, but they can't tangle with killer whales. How dangerous are Asian giant hornets really? I was lucky, I never encountered them. But less lucky people say the bite of an Asian giant hornet feels like a hot nail being driven into your leg. I don't think I want to know how entomologists came up with this analogy. But here's a fact. The hornet's stinger is so long and strong, it can easily pierce clothes. And not just your favorite jeans or hoodies. The Asian giant hornets can handle even the protective clothing worn by beekeepers. You know these tight suits? Seems like to protect yourself from the bite of the Asian giant hornet, you need to wear knight's armor. However, if the hornet wants to harm you, it'll find a way. Not only can they use their stingers to inject venom, Asian giant hornets can also spray venom into a person's eyes under certain circumstances. What exactly causes this behavior? How can one avoid this? So far, scientists failed to figure this out, as well as the degree of eye damage when it gets exposed to the venom. But it certainly has consequences for health. It's believed that the venom of the Asian giant hornet is less toxic than the venom of some other species, but the hornets win when it comes to volume. Imagine a splinter got under your skin. Ouch! It's a nasty feeling, but that's not too bad. Now imagine how you would feel when pierced by a huge stake. You don't have to be a vampire to realize it doesn't feel good. So, these are huge insects with giant stingers and a large amount of venom. That's just great. A small colony of hornets can kill a human weighing about 154 pounds if insects attack him at the same time. However, some scientists believe that Asian giant hornets are not as aggressive as they're believed to be. They're just protecting their nests. The only problem is that hornets are always ready to defend their nests. Even if humans don't threaten them at all and only, pass by and didn't suspect these insects were nearby, Asian giant hornets are definitely the animals that believe the best defense is a good offense. Well, they can afford to think that way, even when they defend themselves from humans. In response to toxins, our nervous system can simply shut down. The venom can cause kidney failure, cardiac arrest, plus an allergic reaction can occur, which will cause anaphylactic shock. Each year, these insects kill 30 to 40 people in Japan, but it's unlikely that all the unfortunate victims of hornets posed any real threat to them. The good news is that one hornet can inject a lethal dose of venom, unless you have an allergy, of course. The bad news, when threatened, the Asian giant hornet will call on its friends to attack. Something like, "Hey guys, we have a stranger here. Let's take him down." And this is a real problem. In China, people who've been bitten by a hornet 10 times are advised to seek medical attention, and when bitten 30 times, they need urgent help. An encounter with an Asian hornet is not that time when you can hope everything will somehow work itself out. Even if there are no serious consequences for the internal organs and the nervous system, there's always a risk of tissue necrosis. In short, that's hardly nice. Personally, this information was enough for me to understand how dangerous giant hornets are. But if this is somehow not convincing enough for you, I have more facts which can make your skin crawl. The Asian giant hornet is very predatory. It hunts medium to large-sized insects like bees and other hornet species, all kinds of beetles, and even praying mantises. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned that praying mantises can even feed on lizards. Well, giant hornets can eat praying mantises in the fall. Do you realize what kind of monsters we're talking about? If the Asian giant hornet wants, it's quite capable of killing a dragonfly, a spider, or even a mouse. Yes, adults can drink only the juices of their victims, but for the sake of the offspring, the hornets have adapted. They chew their prey into a paste to feed their larvae. Yummy. The main opponents and favorite victims of hornets are, of course, bees. You can say that attacking beehives is something like their specialization, a profession learned at the University of Nature. When Asian giant hornets invade a bee colony, they can go into berserk mode. I'm not kidding. In this state, the hornets kill one bee after another, and the number of victims reaches 40 per minute. In a few hours, a small group of hornets can destroy a colony of 30,000 bees, and a smaller colony can be wiped out by only one hornet. And it'd be okay if these monsters just attack the hive to devour everyone inside, but no, the Asian giant hornets act in a different manner. They bite off the heads and legs of their victims and then carry the lifeless body to their nest to eat it there. Bee larvae also stand no chance. Sometimes after a quick cleanup of the bee colony, the hornets slowly eat up the bee larvae in order to feed their own larvae later. Well, here's a reasonable question. Can't bees actually do anything about it? Unfortunately, honeybee stings can't penetrate the hornet's thick outer shells. Even if they try really hard and sacrifice their lives, it won't do any good. Honeybee attacks on Asian giant hornets are like a stone spear trying to pierce a tank. Very brave, but completely pointless. If I were a bee, I'd start panicking at the mere thought there might be Asian giant hornets somewhere nearby. You know what? Let's get animal feces. Bring it into the nest and smear it on the inside and outside. How about that?
5 minutes later.
Mr. Bull, could you give us some of your, this stuff to protect the hive? Thank you. This is not some crude humor, but a working strategy. When giant hornets approach the hive, the bees respond by collecting bits of solid waste from nearby chicken coops and heaps of mammal dung. They then apply it in tiny mounds shaped with their jaws. The hornets really try to fly around the protected hives as if they don't even want to touch the dirty passages. The hives smeared with feces were never captured by giant hornets. It'd be very embarrassing if a whole squad of giant hornets flew in to attack the hive and, the hive turned out to be alarmed. But this simply can't happen because hornets, like real warriors, send a scout first. The attack begins only when the scouts find a new hive and mark it with a pheromone. However, sometimes intelligence goes far beyond the familiar region. There is a clear logic in this behavior. Local bees are gradually learning to adapt to the attacks of Asian giant hornets, which means they need new defenseless victims. When a hornet enters a Japanese honeybee's nest, its inhabitants gather around the invader and form a living bee ball. They vibrate their flying muscles, raising the temperature and carbon dioxide levels inside, literally cooking the hornet inside. By the way, it's a very effective strategy when you have to fight with one individual, the very scout who can call the rest of the army. What are hornets supposed to do in such situations? Capture new regions. Attention, soldiers! You, scout the area around our nest. You, fly to the nearest bee colony. And you, Steve, you fly to the North Pole. But it takes 2 months to get there. It's cold, no Wi-Fi. There are bears around and, bears! That's right. Not so long ago, Asian giant hornets were spotted in North America, and this has caused serious concern. Their usual habitat is Asian countries and some parts of the Russian Far East. But since the hornets could cross the ocean, the North American bees are in grave danger. After all, the hornets will not stop. They can move south, gradually capturing more and more new territories. Meanwhile, bees are one of the most important insects on our planet. They're pollinating food crops so that we can get fruits, vegetables, grains, and so on. If all the bees go extinct, it'll upset the delicate balance of Earth's ecosystem and affect global food supplies. You see what the problem is? Even if you hate vegetables and fruits, the absence of bees will ultimately affect everything. There'll be no bread, there'll be no fries. By the way, there'll be no ketchup either. Wasn't so long ago that scientists began to study bees more closely and realized just how important they really are. After realizing that, they panicked. And their concern is justified. Insects are facing extinction rates that are 8 times higher than vertebrates. There are more than 800 species of wild bees in Europe, of which more than 150 are endangered, vulnerable, or near threatened. Of course, bees are not the only insects involved in pollination. Though butterflies, bumblebees, some flies, and others are also in danger, research shows that up to 40% of the world's insect species are in decline. The situation is not getting better. Invasive predators like giant hornets, parasites, and disease-causing bacteria kill many insects important to us, and they do it pretty fast. Humans, of course, are trying to do something, but so far, our attempts are not very successful. We hope we can come up with some kind of robotic bees in the future. Seems like the Asian giant hornets deserve to meet an opponent like a Terminator. I'll be back. Our planet formed around 4.6 billion years ago, at about the same time when the solar system was born from a giant rotating cloud of gas and dust. Large debris and cosmic dust formed the Earth, which was heavily bombarded by meteorites. And then a planet the size of Mars crashed into the Earth. This collision gave us the Moon. After a while, continents in the familiar world ocean appeared on Earth. Volcanic activity abated. The planet was ready for life. But a huge territory like that needed a king. That was a problem, because there were a lot of candidates. Water. It all began in the water. It was here that the very first king, the apex predator, appeared, and it's believed was Anomalocaris. Yes, it looked like a giant shrimp with a weird mouth, but most likely it was enough to be big at that time. The appearance of Anomalocaris is linked with the Cambrian explosion, a period of rapid diversification of life on Earth. Just imagine, at first the water looked like a thin soup with small worms, and then, boom, many more organisms emerged. They acquire an exoskeleton, predators begin to eat their prey, vertebrates evolve, and here we are. Welcome to the modern ocean. If the Anomalocaris had survived to this day, it wouldn't maintain its status of an apex predator. More than 500 million years ago, it was enough to grow to 15 inches long. But the ocean we're used to follows completely different rules now. A new king rules here. A killer whale. One of the largest predators in the world, killer whales are rightfully considered the kings of the seas. They hunt in deadly pods of up to 40 individuals and eat whatever they come across. Fish, penguins, other seabirds, squids, marine mammals, up to whales. Everything is good enough. For each victim, killer whales choose an individual strategy because their intelligence and ability to work in a team allow them to do this. They can even cruelly play with their prey. If Saw was filmed underwater, I know who the killer whale would play. And they're also incredibly fast and can reach speeds of up to 34 miles per hour. This is the maximum allowed speed in a number of countries, but hardly anyone would risk giving a ticket to a killer whale. Would no one oppose the killer whales and seize the throne? Take sharks, for example. They terrify humans. So why not slightly expand their influence on the animal kingdom? Unfortunately for sharks, it's impossible to broadcast Jaws in the ocean, and they are also afraid of killer whales. It's hard to judge them because killer whales don't mind eating a shark, and they choose complicated methods of killing. Some push their prey to the surface. Others paralyze sharks by turning them over and then eat only the liver. They attack both the fastest and the largest species. Even a great white shark is in danger if it gets caught by a killer whale. No wonder sharks prefer to swim away as soon as they smell a killer whale, because an encounter means certain death. Oh, and don't forget that sharks are loners by nature, while killer whales hunt in pods. In short, sharks stand no chance. The only one who can challenge the title of the killer whale as the king of the ocean is human. But that's a completely different story. Land. When we talk about the most powerful, fearless, bloodthirsty, in short, the most formidable predator on land, everyone immediately thinks of the honey badger. Oh yeah, this guy is as cool as it gets. The honey badger's not afraid of venom. His coat is so thick, it's hard not only to bite through, but even to cut it. And internet tells legends about the courage of the honey badger. In addition, he's cunning, dexterous, smart, and prefers to avoid dangerous opponents. Wait, what? Despite their reputation as the world's most fearless animal, honey badgers try to stay out of trouble. Sometimes after finding fresh tracks of a lion or a leopard, honey badgers prefer to hide in their holes, and they attack large predators only when they're surprised. When the honey badger is digging, he doesn't see what's happening around, so the approach of a lion is an unpleasant surprise, so you have to attack someone from whom you could hide otherwise.
Hey, easy, bro. Don't give us away. Be a good fellow and take this out of the video, okay?
Okay, who else, if not the honey badger, can be called the king of the land? Well, it all depends on the region. In the Arctic, the polar bear is considered an apex predator. On several islands in Indonesia, the crown belongs to the Komodo dragon. In other areas, alligators, brown bears, packs of wolves, and big cats like lions or tigers can be found at the top of the food chain. And yet, if I had to vote for the most formidable predator, I'd pick the polar bear. Why? Well, just look at it. Huge, heavy, with a thick coat and a layer of fat that works like natural armor against any blows. Powerful paws with long, sharp claws to tear the prey. Ability to walk on snow and thin ice. A perfect sense of smell. This predator will find its prey even 1 mile under the snow. Also, the polar bear is really not afraid of anyone because there's no one to hunt it. And yet, these kings of the Arctic have one serious drawback. Like sharks, polar bears are solitary, whereas the lions, which claim the title of the apex predator in Africa, hunt in groups. You see what I'm getting at? Perhaps a polar bear can handle one lion, simply crushing it with strength and weight. But most likely, the lions would attack the Arctic predator with the entire pride, which can include up to 20 individuals. Yeah, seems like the bear just won't stand a chance. So, lions are the kings of land? Well, looks like it. Let me know if the tigers call to challenge that statement. Air. So far, we've only talked about certain species that dominate in water and on land. But when it comes to air, that is the sky, things are a little different. I've done some research, and it looks like the whole family is sitting on a throne here. No, not the Lannisters or even Targaryens. These are Accipitriformes. This largest order of diurnal birds of prey probably includes everyone you imagine when you hear the words king of the sky. Well, except for Elon Musk, of course. These are vultures, eagles, hawks, kites. Can you imagine how much influence this family, has in the sky? I wonder who's the boss among them. You come to me, but you come without respect. You don't even offer me a mouse. Sharp beaks, huge wings, downright gigantic claws one could only compare with that of a grizzly bear, perfect vision, speed. Accipitriformes have all these weapons. Hell, the strongest bird in the world is part of this family. The female Harpy Eagle is capable of killing and carrying away prey of superior size. Add to this the legs that can be as thick as a child's wrist, and an attack force that generates 3 times the muzzle energy of a bullet shot from a .357 Magnum handgun. Even though the fastest birds belong to a different order, hardly anyone would argue that the air belongs to the Accipitriformes. Also, they literally took over the entire planet. After all, Accipitriformes hunt not birds only. They choose their prey both on land and in even the water. Some eagles are happy to catch fish, and golden eagles are actually trained to hunt wolves. Yeah, you heard that right. Apex predators who rule over one element attack the kings of another. Yes, they have to be trained by people, but you can't deny golden eagles can kill mammals larger and heavier than wolves with a powerful blow right to the back of the skull. It's in their instincts. If animals could reason the same way as humans, we would face a war harder than that in Game of Thrones. Shadow. As soon as the sun sets, the time of darkness comes, and different laws rule here. Many diurnal creatures become completely defenseless and prefer to hide, while others receive a bonus from nature. Take, for example, lions. They can hunt at any time of the day, but it's at night that most of their prey can't see well. A great opportunity to sneak up close. Darkness is also on the side of those who unleash a war between the kings of different elements. The same eagles that attack the wolves during the day become victims of owls at night. Yes, owls use the night to settle scores with the eagles. And this confrontation has been going on for millions of years. And over this time, I even managed to make a video about it. It turned out to be as legendary as the war itself. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Think the world of shadows isn't fair? Well, that's the way it is. Here, the successful ones are the most slithery creatures who attack sleeping animals, sneak up in the dark to strike, and drink blood. Exactly, that's the bats. They're the ones you can call the real monsters of the night. Yes, out of a bunch of bat species, only a couple feed on blood, but that doesn't make bats any less creepy. They move rather quietly. Maybe they learn from mosquitoes how not to do. Also, the vast majority of bats' prey sleeps during their meal. Wild animals, livestock, even humans. We don't usually appear on their menu, but a hungry bat won't say no to a human sleeping outside. Plus, he won't even wake up. It's all about the teeth. They lack enamel, which keeps them so razor sharp that you can cut yourself even if you handle the skull of a bat exhibited in some museum. Take care of your hands. Usually, during the bite, a bat drinks about a tablespoon of blood. That's nothing. This loss won't do much harm, but this is only if you were attacked by one bat. And they, in fact, love hunting together. According to the data I found online, 100 bats can drink the blood of 25 cows in a year. I mean all their blood. You can calculate how many bats it takes to drain one cow over a night. Share the answer in the comments. I'm also curious. About 8 out of 10 bushfires in Australia are caused by lightning strikes. Animals are always the first to suffer from fire. Over millions of years of evolution, they've come up with different ways to escape it, and it's always worked. Until the point when the animals themselves became the cause of fires. In the 1980s, a firefighter named Dick Hewson was called to put out a fire in Kangaroos National Park. He eliminated the source of fire, but suddenly noticed a raptor with a burning stick in its talons. The bird flew a couple feet more, dropped the stick, and the fire broke out in a new place right away. No matter how hard Hewson tried to put it out, the fire sparked again and again. Like it was done on purpose? But this sounds like complete nonsense. Why would any animal set fire to their own home? After all, they all know that fire means death. And where would a bird get fire to learn how to use it? How are these bipeds doing so well? Okay, birds, of course, don't start a fire on their own. In any case, people have not seen anything like it yet, but they make excellent use of the flame, which has already started burning. At least 3 Australian species, the black kite, the whistling kite, and the brown falcon, are considered serial arsonists. Or rather, firehawks. The primary source of the fire can be a forest fire caused by lightning or any other cause. All you need to do is just wait, and fire will certainly spread around. All that's left is to grab the burning stick with talons or take it in the beak and carry it to the right place. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out the birds even thought of pulling branches out of the bonfires. What's next? They'll snatch logs from fireplaces? Hold on, I still don't understand. What's the point of that? Birds can't be doing this simply out of spite or a desire to burn everything around, and the reason is really different. As soon as a fire breaks out, most animals simply have to flee for their lives.
Fly, you fools!
They get out of their hiding spots and move in a certain direction opposite to the spreading of the flame. This is an emergency evacuation inherent by nature, and the firehawks understand it very well. No one will deny the instinct of self-preservation and think about the fact that there might be predators there. Maybe we should look around. To hell with the predators. There's a fire blazing. What should you do when other animals are scared? Attack! That's probably the fastest and easiest hunting method ever invented by a predator. I wonder if the animals fleeing from the fire are considered fast food. Though when you are a bird, you have to really try to understand how fire works. Observe, make conclusions, check out how exactly fire spread, whether it's possible to take a piece of disaster with you and move it to the right place. It only looked simple at first glance, because people have learned to use fire too long ago. And you know what? The birds may have done the same. The indigenous population of Australia has always known about so-called firehawks. While scientists are still arguing whether birds can deliberately set something on fire, ordinary people figured it out 40,000 years ago. And they are certain, yes, birds can do it, and they do it all the time. Complete madness! On the other hand, why not? After all, people once realized they could use the flame created by lightning for their own purposes, so why can't others do the same? Birds can also observe and analyze. What stops them from taming fire? Give these birds some more time, and in a couple thousand years, they'll invent their version of Facebook. However, using fires is not such a unique ability. It's just that animals usually do not start these fires on their own, but they've long figured out how to get the most from a devastating catastrophe. Like some other birds, marabou storks follow the fires, not flee from them. They usually feed on carrion, as well as insects and all sorts of small things like rodents, so the burnt-out ground is the perfect place to have a feast for the marabou storks. They got the nickname Undertaker birds for a reason, even though they actually got it for their looks. Admit it, they are not very cute. Some terrestrial predators also use fires for their own selfish purposes. Bears and raccoons often hunt animals that are trying to flee from the fire. I don't know how they do not catch fire at the same time, but maybe the reason lies in experience and cold-blooded calculations. When you understand which direction and at what speed the fire is moving, you can come up with a plan. However, many species already have their own survival algorithm. Not all animals mindlessly run away from the fire. Amphibians can bury themselves in the mud, moose can wait out the disaster in the nearest reservoir, and kangaroos sometimes run towards the flames. According to research, kangaroos, like wallabies, other marsupial species, risk crossing the fire edge to occupy the territory which is already burned. This makes sense. Since nothing is burning there, it means that there is nothing left to burn, so it's safe. Perhaps if animals learned to put out fires, it would become much easier for all of us, but we're not there yet. So far, the best nature has to offer is firehawks and chimpanzees that understand how fire works. Not like they talk to it like Harry Potter with the fireplace.
Serious.
Chimpanzees stay cool in front of the fire. They have an almost human ability to predict the spread of wildfires. When they see the flame, they calmly avoid it. No stress. By the way, that was how our distant ancestors once began to tame fire. It is unlikely any other animals like tortoises have any chance to start using fire, but on the other hand, they learn to save other creatures from disasters. The gopher tortoise can dig excellent burrows that provide shelter for over 350 other species during fires or hurricanes. Most importantly, the owner of the burrow does not mind the unexpected neighbors at all. Although this means snakes, including rattlesnakes, burrowing owls, various frogs and invertebrates, and probably everyone who can crawl through the entrance. Perhaps if all these animals that actually suffer from fires realized that sometimes birds are the cause, they'd, somehow deal with them. Perhaps many fires in Australia would have been extinguished much faster if it were not for the birds' love of fast food. But birds of prey are not the only ones starting fires. You've probably seen how birds sit on power lines. Quite an ordinary scene. If these are modern power lines, then everything should be in order. But if the power lines were designed at the beginning of the last century, then the bird can actually cause an accidental spark. Well, they didn't think about the impact on wildlife back then. The bird can simply fly into the power line, then the spark hits the feathers light up, and yes, the poor birds really had tough luck. Turns out about 1,000 years ago, people even used the ability of birds to cause fires. It's clear back then there were no power lines yet, let alone electricity. Princess Olga, who ruled over Kiev and Rus, used birds to capture the city of Iskoristan. The siege lasted a whole year until Olga went for a trick. She offered the residents to pay her a strange tribute, 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house. People, of course, were surprised, but agreed and gave Olga the birds. Then she ordered to tie some small pieces of cloth to each bird, and at night, when it got dark, they set the cloth aflame and released the birds. The pigeons flew to their nests, the sparrows flew under the roofs, a fire broke out, and the inhabitants were forced to flee. The city was captured. Does it mean that fires can be beneficial to the predators and Princess Olga? Generally, it seems to be true. But when I began to study this issue, I discovered an unexpected thing. Turns out animals almost do not die of fires, unless of course they last for a very long time, occur due to natural causes, or cover too large territories. Animals got used to the fact that something burns on Earth from time to time, and they know how to behave in that case. Moreover, fires even have a positive effect on nature. For example, on burned-out pastures, there's 20 times more food for moose, so it's unlikely they'll be against fires. Also, wilderness areas such as forests and prairies grow naturally and change over time. A fire is something like a reset button when everything is rolled back to factory settings. But sometimes even the best reboot in the world can get out of hand and result in a blue screen of death. Forest fires are so intense they can create their own weather systems, causing more fires. Yeah, you heard right. Fires that cause fires. Smoke and hot air rise upwards where pyrocumulus clouds form. The quivering air causes water droplets and ice crystals to collide, building up an electrical charge and turning the system into a giant thunderstorm mushroom. Thunderstorms mean wind, which helps fire spread, and lightning, which causes new outbreaks at a great distance. In at least one case, such a mushroom even created a fire tornado. Can you imagine the consequences? So, good things come in small packs, especially when it comes to fire. In 2014, a team of scientists discovered a large number of dinosaur remains in Utah. All of these ancient lizards had been caught in a cruel quicksand trap 25 million years ago. First, the herbivores were trapped, then the predators came at their scent, hoping for easy prey. All of them died because of a simple vagary of nature, which made no sense. But over time, animals have evolved. Now they're capable of creating their own traps, and even teaching it to humans. People often call this bird dumb, and whoa. Put aside your dislikes, that's the real origin of its name. Before boobies were too friendly and clumsy, they could board a sailing ship where they were easily caught and then roasted. And other boobies weren't at all embarrassed by the fate of their eaten brethren. But people were so impressed with the silly boobies that they even named mines after them. And it's quite an ominous legacy. Booby traps were planted in the most unobvious places for the specific purpose of fooling the enemy, confusing them, and of course, hurting them.
Bomb has been planted.
Explosive devices named after birds could be found anywhere. Inside furniture, under stairs, in cars, in personal belongings, behind paintings, and even in the toilet, for crying out loud. In short, pretty creepy stuff. However, I was telling all this because of one particular trap. Here it is. See? Well, it looks pretty conventional. Some kind of trench for an introvert? What's so special about it? It's simple. The authors of this idea aren't human, but spiders.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Good thing there's no copyright in the arthropod world. Otherwise, the Tanzidae would have every reason to sue humans. These spiders differ from their many brethren in their love of burrows, which they build themselves and close with trapdoors made of soil, plants, and cobwebs. Tanzidae usually lead a nocturnal lifestyle and wait for prey by holding on to the bottom of the door with claws on their legs. As soon as an insect or other arthropod or small vertebrate catches the threads of web stretched in advance, the vibration enters the hatch. The spider only has to quickly jump out and drag the prey into the deep, dark corridor.
Yes! Got it. Look at that. Did you see that?
By the way, the oldest spider of the species lived 43 years, and all because it almost never left its small burrow. Now that's what #StayHome should really look like. Of course, people sitting in cramped spider holes couldn't spend decades there. It's just a hole in the ground, where a person could fit about shoulder height or even less, depending on their height. In some holes, you could only sit in a squatting position, and it was necessary to be as secretive and quiet as possible. The top of the shelter was often camouflaged with a lid, and it was used for a foray or a surprise attack. Yeah, imagine having to climb into that hole with a gun in your hand as well. Nevertheless, the trap, perfectly copied from the spider hole, was used in World War II and during the Vietnam War.
This lid has to be camouflaged to match the surrounding area.
But if everything's clear with humans, how does the spider itself create its traps? I mean, it certainly has many legs, but no shovels. Are spiders even capable of digging? Oddly enough, yes. Unlike other species, Tanzidae have a number of hard spines located on their chelicera. In other words, the arthropod mouthparts. These two appendages at the front are covered with special serrations. You know, those things. Yeah, thanks, Harry. They're used to dig in the ground and to collect and discard excess soil when building a burrow. So you could say that nature created spiders with hairy teeth on purpose to dig burrows with them. Not a bad example to follow if you think about it. What do you think a gladiator, a fisherman, and a spider have in common? That's right, a net. And it's unlikely that spiders looked at gladiators in ancient Rome and were like, cool thing these bipeds have. I'll be using it during the hunt too. It's more likely that people were inspired by spider methods. And I'm not talking about the usual web stretched between stationary objects. Deinopidae don't weave such webs. Instead, they create a web between their front paws and wait their turn. When prey approaches, the spider stretches the web to 2 or 3 times its original size and can throw it on its prey. Honestly, this is one of the most unusual ways of hunting in the animal kingdom that I've seen. But not the most unusual. If gladiator spiders exist in the world, why shouldn't there be cowboy spiders? Bolus spiders use a silk thread with a sticky ball on the end instead of the standard web. This ball consists of a sticky, poisonous substance and twisted threads coated with a slightly less sticky substance. The composition, of course, is complex, but everything is thoroughly calculated. When the bolus spider sees a desirable insect, it swings around and throws the ball thread at it. Much like a cowboy throws a lasso around the neck of a bull or horse. If the ball at least touches the prey, all the spider has to do is entangle it in the thread and soon eat it. No biggie. This way it sometimes catches up to 7 prey in one night. And imagine if these spiders also had horses? Actually, if you look at spiders, it begins to seem that they're the perfect predators. Years of evolution have perfected even their traps, and now no one can hit. And what are those babies? Meet the assassin's bugs, the hitmen of the insect world. Not only are they able to hunt spiders, but they do it right in the middle of spider webs. To avoid attracting unnecessary attention from the spider, the assassin bugs slowly take the threads of the web and gently pull them apart until the threads tear. Then again, and again, and again. In this way, they literally tear their way to the prey while remaining completely invisible to the spider. These actions are so invisible that they can hardly be tracked with the most modern technology. And since the spider has no such technology, well, so long, buddy. Yes, to be a perfect predator, it's not enough to know how to set cunning traps. However, some insects don't need to. They're already born with traps on their faces, literally. Erantomacus is a genus of omnivorous ants that have simply huge jaws. Seriously, it's like nature decided not to bother with all sorts of hunting strategies and gave these insects all the cards at once. But the size of the trap on the face is not the only feature, because the giant jaws can also open 180 degrees, slamming down with unreal speed if necessary. According to scientists' calculations, it takes ants about 130 microseconds to do this. Hardly anyone can notice the whole process without special equipment. Just imagine, 130 microseconds and the prey has been grabbed with force about 300 times the ant's body weight.
But against smaller, soft-bodied insects, these strikes can be deadly.
It's believed that the jaws either kill or cripple prey instantly, but sometimes they're used for slower and more precise tasks. For example, for nest building or for caring for larvae. And that's where the important thing is to not mix things up. Of course, traps aren't only found in the animal or insect world. For carnivorous plants, it's the only way they can get any food at all. They can't chase after anything delicious. The largest carnivorous plant in the world is the Nepenthes raja. Its menu includes not only insects, but also mice, frogs, or lizards. After all, its size allows it to do so. But there's the problem. There aren't many insects where Nepenthes raja grows. To survive, the plant has to rethink its diet. Its large bowl full of nourishing nectar attracts small animals. After licking the nectar off the leaves, the animals relieve themselves, fertilizing the plant. And the waste is transformed into new nectar, which attracts new animals. And so it goes, round and round. And also, just think about it, the plant has turned itself into a natural analog of a toilet bowl. It thickened the walls of its bowl so that the animal could sit on it comfortably, not falling down and not breaking the flour. And the shape of the funnel, which the plant's bowl has adopted, allows the droppings to go exactly to their destination. All that's left to do is grow a brush. Yep, that awkward feeling when the largest carnivorous plant on the planet is forced to work as a public toilet? Seems like some kind of sad metaphor for employment after college. What about a trap the size of an entire tree that's also misused? Pisonia are seemingly harmless trees and shrubs that grow in the tropics and subtropics. But what is completely harmless to humans and even considered a great garden plant is simultaneously a deadly trap. Its main victims are birds. The large seed pods of Pisonia are covered with dense mucus and small hooks. Insects get stuck in this sticky mess, but when a bird is about to snack on this kind of fast food, it becomes a prey itself. The sticky and sharp Pisonia seeds cling tightly to the feathers of the bird, and often the bird simply can't fly away. That is, the tree acts as a giant fly tape. Often the trapped bird falls to the ground or remains trapped on a branch. Well, then death comes either from starvation or from the claws of birds of prey. It's not clear why the Pisonia kill the birds at all. Their bodies are quickly eaten by scavengers, so this is clearly not a way to fertilize. Most likely, in this way, the plant simply spreads its seeds by gluing them to the plumage. And the fact that many birds simply die in the process of gluing. Well, it's kind of a side effect for Pisonia, a small error. Unlike Pisonia, the alligator snapping turtle hunts without incidental victims. Well, even if there are some, they can no longer tell you anything. This turtle's trap is located right in its mouth. And really, why think of anything else when you can use your own mouth? Thanks to evolution, which gave the snapping turtle a thin, worm-like tip of its tongue, colored bright pink, all that's left to do with such thing is to lie motionless on the bottom, buried in the silt, open the mouth wide, and wait. Well, and wiggle your tongue from time to time. Something pick and worm-like, of course, attracts the attention of fish. They swim closer to grab their prey, then become one themselves. It's simply impossible to get out of the snapping turtle's powerful jaws. Oh, look! So it turns out that it literally lures fish with a worm, but it doesn't use a fishing rod. Not a bad way to save money. According to research by Professor Roger Ulrich, the view through a window can facilitate recovery from surgery. Patients with nature window views were released from the hospital faster and had fewer complications. Trees reduce stress, relieve pain, and help you relax. Until you look at the branch and see this. What if I tell you this small bird that looks like a sparrow is in no way inferior to eagles and owls? The loggerhead shrike is also known as a butcher bird, although it looks like a companion to some Disney princess, but don't let the looks deceive you. The menu of this bird includes insects, arachnids, amphibians, reptiles, small rodents, and even young birds of other species. Seeing potential prey, the loggerhead shrike swoops down on it like an eagle. Hold on, an eagle? Seriously? This baby? Yes, sometimes shrikes grow up to 10 inches, but that's still very small. Just look at them. Usually predators have powerful wings to carry heavy loads and sharp, strong claws to catch their prey. Add the beak, and you get a real killing machine. Meanwhile, loggerhead shrike got the feet of a sparrow. They're only good for sitting gracefully on a branch. Their wings also don't look like powerful lifting mechanisms. Of course, evolution gave loggerhead shrikes hooked beaks, but compared to the beaks of eagles, they look like mockery. And when I say loggerhead shrike's feet are only good for sitting on branches, I mean it. As soon as the birds land on a branch or some kind of wire, their feet are automatically locked to prevent falling. In addition, their feet usually don't feel anything. Birds need that to be able to sit on cold surfaces. Try grabbing a metal handrail outside in wintertime and you'll understand why loggerhead shrikes prefer to get rid of the feeling. Hey, I told you to grab it with your hand. Do not try to lick it. It would seem that with skills like that, the loggerhead shrikes should have switched to a diet of berries, seeds, and small bugs. But they did not give up and came up with quite a gory way of hunting. Since nature has not given the shrike strong enough feet, wings, and beak, they use tools, like thorns. I'm not even sure I can explain how it works without violating the YouTube policies. Well, can you imagine a kebab? It works the same way. It's much more convenient to eat prey from a thorn. Also, you can leave it there, like in a pantry, and then go back and finish your meal. And just when you think things can't get any more frightening, the shrikes say, "Ha!" Because these cute birds use the kebab technique not only to make prey easier to eat, sometimes even not very big prey ends up on the thorns if the loggerhead shrike needs to remove toxins from it. It's simple. Grasshoppers live somewhere in a field that humans have treated against pests, which means they carry some of the toxin on themselves as well. Shrikes are smart enough to realize this, but if you leave the grasshopper in the sun and let it dry for a while, then the toxin will no longer be dangerous. So how long should I dry them? I knew I shouldn't have skipped grasshopper studies. And you know what? The sun can really destroy toxins. Researchers from 2 American labs are working on using sunlight to break down harmful compounds such as dioxins. These substances appear for a number of reasons, but mainly due to the uncontrolled burning of waste. They end up everywhere, from soil to food, plants, and air. Only recently have scientists figured out how to use the sun to solve this issue. And it looks like it really works. To be honest, I felt I was a little dumber than a bird when I found this out. On the other hand, I don't eat grasshoppers, so But I don't think shrikes are reenacting forest horror scenes just for the sake of food. Nature probably thought that was too cruel, and so shrikes began to use thorns to court the ladies. The approach is the same. Males make several kebabs and attract females. Whoever did it better is a winner. I agree, a dead mouse on a spit doesn't look like the perfect gift on a romantic date. By human standards, animals are generally not very good at surprises and bring all sorts of nonsense. Better not invite a male scorpion to your birthday, it'll give you a drop of his saliva. Penguins will bring you stones, crickets, pieces of their own wings. What about half-eaten insects? Well, the best gift ever. Nursery web spiders went to even greater extremes. According to the spider tradition, they should give the female a delicious gift. But sometimes the males use deception. Instead of prey, they bring worthless stuff like pieces of flowers, cotton, inedible leftovers from the insects they ate. Moreover, worthless gifts are usually wrapped in more layers of silk than ordinary ones, and this leads to an obvious idea. The spiders clearly know what they're doing. They deliberately use decoys and try to disguise them as best they can. Well, in the end, the female will still find out the truth, but during the short period when she's busy unpacking the gifts, she thinks this male is just perfect for her. Please let it be a PlayStation. Please let it be a PlayStation. A stone again? Can't I find a real man anymore these days? What? The shrike's gifts don't seem so weird anymore, do they? Moreover, the birds also put in some effort to prepare them. Before turning its prey into a gift kebab, the shrike shakes it vigorously. Remember the woodpeckers who put their brains under enormous stress? Shrikes are not like that yet, but in order to immobilize or even kill large enough prey, they have to arrange a roller coaster for them. Well, almost. The birds grab the mice by the neck with their sharp beak, pinch the spinal cord to induce paralysis, and then shake them. They do it with a force that reaches about 6G. Coincidentally, this is usually the highest allowed G-force on the rides. Do you remember this moment when you're suddenly pushed into a chair? The stronger this feeling, the stronger the overloads. But they should last no longer than a couple of seconds. These are safety requirements so that people stay alive after the roller coaster ride. Good thing roller coasters aren't run by shrikes. However, despite all the safety measures, people still black out on the rides. There's still no statistics on that, but what's happening can be explained from a medical point of view. Due to high G-force, when a person is pushed into a chair, the blood does not have enough time to get to the brain, which means it doesn't receive enough oxygen. And the best thing the brain can do in this situation is to go into sleep mode for a few seconds. Sometimes it just affects vision. Sometimes a person passes out. But have you ever wondered why this is happening at all? Well, as for the internal structure of the body, everything is clear. Blood, oxygen, all that stuff. But what about evolution? Passing out looks like a death sentence in the wild. Imagine if, I don't know, an antelope chased by a lion acted this way. He would hardly think, oh no, she's unconscious. I'll look for something else for lunch. So what's the reason? The most common type of syncope is vasovagal. It occurs as a reaction of the body to emotional or physical stress. For example, when you see something unpleasant. Passed out when you saw blood? This is also a vasovagal syncope. And humans seem to have developed it as a defense against other humans. In the Paleolithic era, ancient people were always fighting each other, and the most common cause of death was a wound caused by a sharp object. Scientists believe that women and children simply could not escape from enemy warriors, so they developed such a weird reaction. They began to pass out from fear or at the sight of blood, unwittingly pretending to be dead. Seems like it worked, turning into a survival mechanism. Otherwise, modern people would simply not know how to pass out.
She's dead for the 5th time this week. It's kind of weird. It's okay, Steve. Let's go invent the wheel. Okay.
Unlike humans, animals can't experience vasovagal syncope, and this is understandable. As I already said, predators will not abandon a prey that is suddenly passed out, which is why there are other defense mechanisms in the wild. When the prey can't escape for some reason, it becomes sort of stunned, but it has nothing to do with fainting. It's just staying immobile for the sake of survival. Many predators who track down their prey react to movement, and since lunch does not move, this is not lunch anymore, so they keep looking. At the same time, staying immobile can be a reaction to extreme fear, and some predators have learned to use it. Snowy owls, which are supposed to be less successful hunters on moonlit nights, scare rodents with bright light reflected from their plumage. This fear has been tested in the lab, and yes, the brighter the light, the stronger the fear, and the longer the animals remain still, as if they're stunned, but often they freeze too late. Owls have time to see and hear them. All that's left is to attack. Loggerhead shrikes hunt in daylight and look harmless, but they pounce on their prey like falcons and know how to stun it like owls, and even learn to use tools instead of sharp claws. We're talking about a small, weak bird with a beautiful singing voice. How did it even manage to evolve this way? Well, I have an answer. You're not you when you're hungry. This illustration is about 150 years old. Charles Hall, an Arctic explorer, drew it based on a story that locals shared with him while he was searching for the missing members of the expedition led by John Franklin. However, he was skeptical about it. Who would believe polar bears can use rocks to hunt walruses? Official science considered these stories mere myths, but it turned out that the Inuit knew much more about the world than most prominent scientists. Do polar bears really throw rocks at walruses? The biggest land predators can't handle their prey, well, the traditional way? Come on. These are walruses, giant hulking sausages with tusks. How can they be difficult to handle? Turns out they can. Nature gave them not only huge tusks and a permanently sleepy look, but also provided them with a means of protection. Don't look at the tusks. Walruses mainly need them to subdue other walruses and climb onto the ice when they get out of the water. Let me give you a second to imagine this. In order not to become prey to a predator, these animals have grown incredibly thick, wrinkled skin. Around the neck and shoulders, that is. In the most vulnerable spots, its thickness reaches 4 inches in males, and then there's also a layer of fat 6 inches thick. It's like evolution gave them a body vest, which protects both from the cold and predators. Yes, polar bears have very sharp teeth and equally sharp claws, but their length usually does not exceed 2 inches. You see what the problem is? Even if the bear's fangs were twice as long and the walrus it came across turns out to be very young, the layer of fat will still ruin the hunt. Don't forget about the strong bones of the skull, which a bear can't bite through the same way as the bones of seals. Oh, and keep in mind the weight. On average, walruses weigh twice as much as polar bears. You can't even move walruses. How do you hunt them? The only way is to use the tools at hand. Well, there are not many of them in the Arctic, so there's not much to choose from. You'll hardly find anything other than snow, ice, and rocks. Perhaps the bears experimented with different tools to come to an unexpected conclusion. Rocks and ice really work. You just need to climb higher and aim properly. Unlike with many other hunting techniques, this one is not embedded in the bear genes. It comes with experience. The bear can see how his relative is tossing rocks or just accidentally drops something on the walrus. Steve, let's throw stones just for fun.
Oh, yeah!
A person discovering such a thing would have the so-called Eureka Moment, a sudden insight, an understanding of a previously incomprehensible concept. You've probably heard the story about Archimedes, who found out that when a body is immersed in water, it displaces the volume of water equal to the volume of the body. According to legend, this realization came to Archimedes in the bathhouse, and the scientist was so delighted that he ran home screaming, "Eureka!" without even dressing up first. Now, for the really interesting fact, animals can also experience Eureka moments. For example, chimpanzees who could not get to a banana for a long time but then found a way to do it were as ecstatic as Archimedes. So maybe polar bears feel the same way. After all, they can teach their cubs how to hunt, share the secrets of their skills, so why not borrow something human-like from humans? Also, sometimes bears and humans share the same attitude towards learning. That is, it's incredibly boring. For example, adult bears take the younger generation on a fishing trip with them to sit by a hole in the ice. They wait for a seal to appear on the surface, and sometimes it takes a very long time. If I were them, I'd rather go throw some rocks.
Son, guess what we're gonna do today?
Sit and watch this hole in the ice for 10 hours straight again?
Yeah!
But to experience the Eureka moment, damn, even just to learn how to hunt with rocks, one has to be really smart. I never thought nature gave polar bears big brains. How did they manage to upgrade their intelligence? It may seem weird, but their diet played a key role here. All bears are omnivores by nature, even if some of them prefer to eat plants and some meat. Nevertheless, it's the omnivorous diet that levels up the bear's intelligence. When you constantly eat the same food, for example, gophers, you don't need to think too much. It's a different story when you have to choose. Imagine you're in line at a buffet, choosing what you want to put on your plate, and the people who cook the food constantly change it in front of you, and you never know what you'll see next. And this happens every year, so bears constantly need to make efforts and think. This is how they gradually develop their brains. Actually, bears have already achieved impressive results. Independent biologist Ben Killam, who helps American black bears at the Rehabilitation Center, believes these animals can remember the distant past, analyze the likelihood of events in the distant future, communicate, and sympathize with each other. According to the biologist, bears could potentially be even smarter than monkeys. Some research confirms that Killam is not far off the mark. It's believed bears can even count to 12. 10, 11, 12, 12, 12. However, their intelligence is not limited to all these things. Most bears are diurnal animals, but they know that people also sleep at night, and when people are sleeping, they won't notice if someone steals some food from them. In addition, it's much more convenient to steal something in the dark. This is conscious behavior, not an evolutionary adaptation, like, for example, in the case of owls. Bears fully realize no one will stop them at night. The key is not to go out into the lit areas, because where the light falls, people can see the animal, and then stealing food won't be possible.
I can explain everything.
And since the bears figured out how to outsmart a human, other intelligent animals can do even better than that. I'm talking about elephants. In regions where there are really a lot of them, people have to protect their crops from raids. And not only the crops, any encounter with a wild animal can be dangerous for both humans and the animal itself. Now imagine how hard it is to stop someone weighing 6 tons when that someone really wants to eat your corn. Ordinary fences do not help here, and the guard dog won't handle a thief like that, especially considering that sometimes elephants come to feed in a pack. This is why people started using electric fences. Yes, perhaps this is not very humane towards the elephants, who would like to be electrocuted. But thankfully, the voltage is not very high. It's just enough to scare off the animal. Well, used to be enough. For a while, elephants do stay away from the fence, which can electrocute them, but over time, curiosity and hunger make them come up with some life hacks. It's quite difficult to demolish such a fence without getting a discharge, so the animals had to carry out a number of experiments. They found out the tusks do not conduct electricity, which means they can hook them on a wire, raise, tear, or simply pull out the fence or put it on the ground. In short, there are many options. The important thing is that the elephant will go where he wants to go, and no fences will stop him. Then, of course, people came up with the idea of implanting something like metal brackets into the tusks so that the fences would still stop the animals. Just you wait a little. Elephants are already using stones and sticks to break the fence and not get electrocuted. It's only the beginning. If you think about it, there's something weird about it. Using tools is a distinctive feature of humans. Why do animals need them? Well, apparently the species evolved this way. It's not just about growing longer fur or stronger hooves. Everything on this planet can adapt, and tools are part of that adaptation. Most of the time, new tools help you get food. See for yourself. An ancient man without a spear or other primitive weapon would never stand a chance against a mammoth. Just because the mammoth is too big, its skin is too thick, and does it remind you of anything? Also, the tools reduce risks. You don't have to fight a mammoth if you throw a spear at it, or you won't have to attack a walrus if you throw a heavy ice floe on its head. Once upon a time, our distant ancestors took ordinary sticks in their hands to make their life a little easier. Then they switched to stones, learned how to make plates from clay, sew clothes and bags, work with iron. Got a little carried away, and today we can order a pizza to our home, and then eating it while watching another video on YouTube. What is this if not evolution? Driven by tools to some extent. Who knows? What if today polar bears use rocks and ice for hunting, and in a couple of million years, they'll also create their own civilization? Or maybe it already exists now.
You are no king, and I will show you that.
You would hardly even pay attention to an adult antlion. It looks a bit like a lazy dragonfly that just kind of flies leisurely back and forth, occasionally eating someone, and that's only if someone gets in its way. An antlion larva is quite another matter. Oh, that's a creature from your nightmares. It seems like it might be what the creators of Star Wars were inspired by when they came up with Sarlacc. See for yourself. An antlion lives inside a sand funnel and eats anyone who accidentally falls into it. But before it eats an accidental victim, the antlion hides in the sand and waits, only exposing its sickle-like jaws. As soon as the sand under the paws of any insect shake even a little, the hidden hunter attacks. A huge amount of sand flies into the victim, and if that seems like nothing to you, remember the dimensions. Sand's like rocks to ants. The knockdown victim collapses to the bottom. The predator's sickle jaws lock onto its body. The end. The seized prey is sucked into the sand, and the insatiable predator devours it. Small beetles and butterflies, caterpillars, ants, and other insects become victims of the antlion. Eventually, after having eaten enough, the larva transforms into an adult and frankly becomes like a school bully who then turns into a harmless loser. Nothing personal, buddy. Caterpillars. Most of them feed on leaves, meaning they are considered herbivores, but not this one. The Hawaiian Eupathecia caterpillar eats other living things. It's probably because of the isolation of Hawaii. There were no insect predators here early on, so the niche was occupied by Eupathecia. However, in order to get its own food, it had to get clever and evolve. Its hind legs have changed so that the caterpillar can cling to the edge or median veins of leaves, twigs, and other surfaces. On the other hand, the forelegs have evolved to grab and hold its prey. The caterpillar stays as still as a branch or stalk and waits for insects to come within striking distance, and then it needs only a momentary attack. And there, one insect is already devouring the other with an appetite. Disguise is of course really cool, but what about real zombies? I'm not kidding. The ones that are no longer alive but not yet dead. It does happen in the wild world, and the emerald cockroach wasp is responsible for the zombification. This is a very beautiful, yet incredibly deadly insect that could very well be the hero of a horror movie, if it were bigger. Emerald wasps rarely grow larger than 2 centimeters, but they prey on cockroaches, which are much larger. Fighting them in a fair fight is simply unrealistic, so the wasps do things differently and zombify the enemy. A couple of bites is enough to partially paralyze the victim, but so that it retains the ability to move only under control. Then all is really easy. The wasp takes the cockroach by its antenna and leads it to its burrow.
Grab him, take it. He's yours.
Right.
There it lays eggs on its abdomen and leaves it there for a while. The emerging larva use the cockroach as food, pupates, and then the adult wasp gets out. The cycle repeats. Another beautiful and frightening hunter in their own way are the predatory fireflies that live in the tropical forests of Peru, or rather glowing larvae, ready to devour anything that comes close enough. Attracted by their light, they burrow into the mud, sticking out only their heads and huge jaws to make a dash at the right moment to grab their prey. Scientists have determined that the larvae can control weather and how brightly they emit light. It all depends on the circumstances. For a potential dinner, you can shine a lot. But if there's a predator or some meticulous person nearby, it's better to just turn it off and hide. What about the creature which is called the assassin bug? Okay, that's something I just couldn't miss, especially since the name is absolutely justified. These little predators are almost everywhere, and if insects could feel fear, they would definitely freak out at the mere mention of the assassin bug. Well, it'd seem, well, what's wrong with them? Funny bugs? Long nose? Oh, it's not just a nose, but a formidable weapon and feeding device at the same time. The assassin bugs are the masters of stealthy killing in the insect world. They ambush and then kill unsuspecting victims and drink their liquid viscera by piercing soft tissue with their sharp beaks. Or rather, first the beetles inject the digestive secret into their prey, and after its entrails have been turned into nutritious soup, the assassin bug sucks up the victim's contents without thinking whether it's still alive or not. Everything happens very quickly, ruthlessly, and extremely professionally. However, not all assassin bugs feed on insects. Some, having just appeared in the world, gladly drink the blood of bats, and some assassin bugs even feed on humans. It's a good thing you can't suck a human dry. At least someone so small can't do that. They don't hunt in groups, do they? Do they? Seriously, guys? As you've learned by now, some insects don't acquire their hunting skills as adults. Some manage to become dangerous hunters as soon as they're born. Epomas beetles can be considered hereditary amphibian killers who begin their violent journey as larvae. Such a larva forces a frog to attack it, and when it attacks, it wounds it and damages its leg tendons so that the victim can't escape. Even if the amphibian manages to swallow Epomas, no good will come of it. The insect is not digested anyway, and in the end, the amphibian will have to spit it out. If the larva that attacked is in the early stages of development, the frog still has a chance to escape alive. If the larva that attacked is in the early stages of development, the frog still has a chance to escape alive. In this case, the insect behaves as an ectoparasite feeding on its body juices and may accidentally let go of its live meal. If the larva is in the middle of development or preparing to become an adult insect, it simply slowly chews up the tissues of its prey, leaving only bones from the toad. Charming animal life. By the way, remember the antlion from the beginning of the video? I also thought it looked like a sarlacc. Well, I was wrong. What really looks like a sarlacc is the predatory sea polychaete worm. It lives on the ocean floor at a depth of 10 to 40 meters, preferring tropical waters. As an adult, it's 2 to 3 meters long, but only its head, which has 5 antenna-like things, sticks out on the surface. The worm uses these antennae to detect any movement nearby and tracks its potential prey. When any fish gets too close, the monster grabs it with its powerful mouth. It does this with such speed and force that it can split a fish in half, and that frankly would be a merciful decision. Because the unfortunate survivor of the attack would learn what it's like to find herself in a worm's burrow, what exactly happens down there is still a mystery to scientists. Perhaps the monster injects its victim with some kind of paralyzing toxin to swallow it alive, and then digests it. Creepy. But the sea worm has a rather cheerful coloring. Perhaps that's a little comforting to the victims. At least they've been eaten by someone classy. But if there's one insect that's really made me feel uncomfortable, it's the giant water bugs.
Wow. Like, I'm not sure the snake can win this one, but this is horrifying.
They're found all over the world and have a total of about 150 genera. The largest live in South America and can grow up to 10 to 15 centimeters. What's really frightening, though? Not their size or even the fact that we're talking about water bugs, which aren't pleasant creatures at all. These insects are insidious and skilled predators, hunting from ambush. Their thick, curved front legs with hooks on the ends are able to grab and hold quite a large prey. And it's not just about insects. Giant water bugs gladly hunt fish, frogs, and even snakes. They grab their prey, stick their sharp proboscis into it, and inject their saliva with a paralyzing effect into the body. It also contains digestive enzymes, which very quickly turn the victim's internal organs into a mushy mass. Kind of like a snake smoothie. All right, that's disgusting. But water bugs suck it up with an appetite. I really hope you weren't eating anything while you were watching. See you later.